Welcome to MOBE Mondays.
Good evening. My name is Yvette Moyo, and I'm the founder of MOBE, Marketing Opportunities in Business and Entertainment. It's an advanced marketing series that was created over 25 years ago and recreated a few years ago. This would have been our fourth year of conferences, advanced marketing conferences for the purpose of accelerating Black business success and creating opportunities for people to meet others that could help to create that acceleration in business. Collaboration works for MOBE, and we were able to count over $200 million in business that we were able to track from people who met each other at MOBE and then sought each other out to make a deal better through collaboration. And so that was in our first 12 years. We've been dormant we were dormant for 12 years, and this would have been our fourth year as the relaunched conference series. And COVID came and knocked out our possibility for the partnership with Howard University that we had created to present MOBE in April. And we immediately, by April 21st, I think, was our first MOBE Monday. And we haven't stopped, and we thought we would be done, in a few times we do it and it would make up for the conference. But look, over 100,000 people have taken the opportunity to view and to use this content that we've created, like we are tonight, to educate themselves, to make themselves aware of the history and culture of working together, of experts that had little exposure. And so it's been perfect opportunity for us to use an hour for the last 25 or so weeks to educate and to make these ties stronger. One of the benefits of our relaunch is that Dorinda Walker, a professional on so many levels in this business, was able to sign on early on after the launch. Actually, at our first one in Atlanta, MOBE conference, she signed on with her company, Prudential, as a sponsor of MOBE. And she was brand manager, she was brand director, she was multicultural at Prudential, and she was making major moves with that company. I believe that her position as Vice President, Cultural Insights and Activation, Brand Marketing and Advertising is one of the highest, strongest positions that an African-American woman has held in corporate America, Fortune 50 company. And so she has since gone on to launch her own consulting business. She is respected throughout the country as a young voice. She's an author and so much more. But her business, she is now CEO at the Cultural Solutions Group. And she has done, some major advancements. Oh my goodness, that's my phone. That's actually a landline that I didn't even know was working. So here we are launching an exciting segment of this conference of the MOBE Mondays. And I'm gonna let Dorinda take over and let her know that how honored I am to have her participation on this level. And to my dear friend and someone I've admired throughout my 43 years in advertising, I wanna say thank you to Carol H. Williams for her wonderful job that she's been doing. I'm honored to have all of you, and I'm going to sit back and learn something tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Yvette, and good day, everyone. It's such a pleasure to moderate this panel. We have some fantastic advertising industry trailblazers and change agents. So I'm just going to get right to it and start by introducing the esteemed panel. We have Alex Lopez Negrete, President and Chief Executive Officer at Lopez Negrete Communications, one of the country's most influential, independent, Hispanic-owned and operated omnicultural marketing agencies. Derek L. Walker, instigator, janitor, secretary, mailroom person, and owner of Brown and Browner Advertising, an industry veteran of nearly 30 years. We also have Carol H. Williams, owner, president, CEO, and chief creative officer at the Carol H. Williams Advertising, the longest running independent multicultural marketing shop in the country. We also have Bill Amata, Chairman and Chief Connectivity Officer of the IW Group, a fully integrated marketing communications agency specializing in the multicultural markets. And last but certainly not least, the dynamic Erica Riggs, Foundation and Inclusion Director for the Ad Club of New York and Diversity and Inclusion Champion, talent cheerleader, social justice advocate, innovator, and mom. Welcome, everyone. It's a pleasure to have all of you on. So we have a lot to cover. So I'm just going to briefly set up the overview and the conversation and dig right into the questions. It's recognized that over the years, it has been the multicultural ethnic agencies that have held brands accountable to speak to their diverse consumer bases. And to a larger degree, given diverse talent who aspired to be in the marketing and communications industry, a place to have a viable career that oftentimes was not afforded until recently in the general market agency or the holding company space. So in continuing a dynamic conversation going forward on today's MOBE Monday, we want to discuss and dig a bit deeper to gain insights from established and successful trailblazers who represent the best of the best in multicultural ethnic agencies and organizations. So I'm just going to get right to it, because in this climate of racial reckoning that we're seeing ourselves in today, we have the opportunity to ensure that multicultural and ethnic agencies are provided equitable opportunities to compete in the marketing and advertising industry. So Erica, this question is for you. Your organizations and others like the AAF, the ANA, and 4As are leading advocacy and inclusion efforts to ensure there's equitable opportunity to compete. But is it enough? That's always the question. Are we doing enough? And what more needs to be done to pass the baton in the 21st century landscape and environment?
So it's easy. That's an easy answer. That's no. That would be an NO. Are we really leading advocacy? Are we really leading? Or are we, some people like to say, I actually feel like we're followers. We just began to really kind of get the steam. We like to say that we, it's in our DNA and all these wonderful, terms. But until the industry really, until the world actually started to cry out and say no more to these young millennials and to the seasoned, mentors who have always carried the torch, telling us we could do more, we need to be in these spaces. I think it was a perfect storm that happened with this pandemic and everything that's happened recently. I spoke to a professor out of the University of Illinois who wrote a book, Dr. Jason Chambers. And I really wanted to get a better historical context of how this cycle that we live in, where there is there's an uproar, and then there's some action. And then there's a small group that gets to climb to the top, and then they get comfortable, and then nothing else happens. And so here we are again with the outroar, with the injustice, with the violence that we see. I call it the black male violent porn that's every other day on social media. And we are ready. But one of the things I want to quote Kai Lawson, who I think is one of the young. She is our Ida B. Wells of the moment. She said that our failure is that instead of using impact as our North Star, we choose to follow intention instead. And I think she's right on point there. The agencies that I work for is good intentions, a lot of great work. We're building wonderful with me. We've been working with the I'm Part Fellowship, helping women who, and Dorinda, you've been a part of watching me go and take these women to these different conferences, provide them the access that they need. And let me tell you something, it is an amazingly positive outcome that these women are having. So we recognize that there are systems and programs that work. The problem is, once we take them and provide them, it's not a problem that the talent's not ready. The problem, as we all know, and we talk about it, Derek and I talk about it all the time, it's the system, right? So now, we've neglected to measure the impact of our intention. And I think that's the difference of today versus what it was maybe 5 years ago, even when I started.
Thank you for that. So does anyone else? Absolutely.
And forgive me because I have filter issues. The industry and organizations have no teeth. They're a rattlesnake with no fangs. And that's not a bad thing, but they can't force any change. They're all volunteer membership. You buy a fee in, but there's no driving. They've never driven the industry towards anything. The agencies have always driven and the clients have always driven. So no, they haven't done it. Now, these three people sitting here, Bill, Carol, and Alex, all three of them run shops that should be handling what we call general market business. They're qualified, their people are trained and can do the job. They've delivered results in their markets, but yet and still, somehow we've continued a system where they can only go but so high. When we talk about what's wrong, as far as what you're asking this question, you got to look at the budgets. The budgets because it's one thing to hire talent and then absorb them into an agency and not do anything with them. But we have a set of agencies who are already capable of doing the work and leading. McDonald's realized this and switched to a minority focus. Coca-Cola's known this forever. Ford picked up on it for a while. Nissan and Toyota know this. But what happens is our trade organizations never speak to the minority run shops. Not with the amount of energy that they should. Because what should be happening is some of these agencies deserve a chance to come in and compete on all the business, not on a sliver of the pie. And let's be honest, it is a sliver. I've worked in-house at Radio Shack, and I've worked on Subaru and Nissan, and I've done McDonald's, and I've done Coke, and I've done a whole bunch of brands at general market shops. So I know how small the minority budget is because we fought to keep them small. And that system hasn't ever been talked about. We've never been calling this out in public, that there's an artificial way that these agencies are being kept down. And I call it, and excuse me for saying it, I almost call it a plantation system, because the general market agencies oversee sometimes what is approved coming out of the minority shops. And that should never be.
Yeah, when I was in corporate America, my last stint was in corporate advertising, and they wanted us to develop a campaign going after Black millennials, but they were working with an agency that had all white representation and one Asian woman. And so my first reaction was, that's never going to do. We're going to bring in a Black agency that understands the target, and that's who we're going to give our business to. And the same thing with the Hispanic market. We're going to work with these agencies who know the market and who can do the ethnic markets, but also general market just as well. So I totally get what you're saying. I think from my perspective, it's going to take an army coming from all different avenues. So, and one issue that I do have is that some of these organizations rely on corporate sponsorship. So if they're really advocating and they're dependent on this corporate sponsorship money, they're really in a bind. It's a conundrum. Does anybody else want to weigh in?
I think Derek brings up, I think you both bring up really good points. I just want to really allow us for a moment to concentrate on the real status of things. I think when you talked about budgets, Derek, you kind of went in where we need to go. We need to hold marketers accountable for not only how much do they spend in our markets, but who they spend it with. We have a maker community, whether it is Latino, African American, Asian American, LGBTQ, whatever, that is really struggling. I mean, just look at the Emmys, right? I mean, look at the nominations. We have a maker crisis. But let me put it this way. I opened my agency in 1985. And by the mid-90s, we had a really good, healthy crop of Latino, African American, Asian, really a good crop of agencies and a good crop of makers. Today, there are less minority-owned agencies, production companies, etc. today than there was 20 years ago. So if you want to ask me, I think the patient's not doing very well.
Can I add, not only that, but the numbers of African Americans? I know the numbers for African Americans in advertising. We're almost back, the 70s, the late 60s and the early 70s, we had more Black people in advertising then than we do now. And when you look at the higher up they went, you know, I'm sorry, Carol, I'm gonna hero worship a bit. I followed the careers of folks like Carol. She had a higher position back then at her old shop than you see a creative having now of color. You know, after that generation left, something happened to us. We got broken. But I'm going to return the budget for you for a second. And it's a sideways way of going to budget. These corporations during the George Floyd protest pledged over $300 million. How come none of that $300 million has found its way to the Black, Hispanic, and Asian advertising agencies?
You know why? Because we make it too easy for these agencies and companies. To be perfectly frank, you know, these companies are saying, we're going to donate $100 million to the communities of color. And then you push on them and say, okay, where are you donating those dollars? Oh, United Negro College Fund, NAACP, and Urban League. Is that the best you can do? And they go, well, HBCUs, it's going to Howard University. Okay, is that the best you can do? There are 110 HBCUs, and why do I always have to go to the top 10? If it's a matter of equity, then we have to push these companies to say, there are 110 HBCUs, and you can't just give to the top 25, the ones that you're most comfortable doing, and you have to push. And I don't think we do that enough. But we also have to be invited to the table. And a lot of these agencies are saying, okay, we've got more African Americans, Latinx folks, Asian Americans, and LGBTQ. In fact, our recruits, 40% of our recruits are communities of color, people of color. Well, we don't ask the next question, well, how many have you kept? And so in order for us to change these conversations, we have to insert ourselves in these conversations. And we not only have to be allies for our own communities, we have to be allies and stand shoulder to shoulder with each of you. And so combined, we can do that. But we have to challenge everything that's being decided now, because if we don't, people are going to go back to just giving to what they know and nobody holding them accountable.
I love that. So I'm going to move to the next question, but I'm going to add something to what you just said, Bill, because I thought it was so profound. I wrote an article which said that diversity and inclusion, in my opinion, is the definition of insanity, because we keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And so for decades, we've been given money to these traditional organizations, civil rights organizations. And I'm not saying that it's not needed, but we need to start thinking about different strategies if we want to make an impact and stop doing the same thing over and over again, because we're still at the height of a racial pandemic. So this next question is for Alex. Your firm is the nation's largest independent Hispanic-owned and operated full-service advertising and marketing services agency. Your team works to deliver a maximum return on cultural intelligence in an omnicultural America. Some would argue that the focus on omniculturalism is akin to total market strategy, which deepened the inequity and business opportunity for multicultural and ethnic agencies. So how do you balance the focus on commonality versus ethnic cultural insights and difference, and preparing your clients to take on the change needed to support America's multicultural consumers?
Thank you, Dorinda. Well, first, it's an honor to be with everybody here. I have to admit, I'm a little starstruck, and it's just such an honor to be with you. And Carol, wow, congratulations on everything. You know, let me first tackle the first thing, total market. An omnicultural approach is different, and I'll explain why. But I have spent the last 5 to 7 years actively spending my life's energy on combating total market. Total market didn't only deepen inequities, it created even more inequities. It is truly, you know, when you look at the reality that's happening in our marketplace, total market conveniently oversimplifies it and really makes it just a casting call at best. You know, I think it's important to look at the marketplace realities and allow their complexity and their elegance to breathe, okay? So there's always been a mainstream. We can always agree to that. You know, from the 40s, 50s, 60s, there's always been a mainstream and there'll always be a mainstream. Somewhere along the way, we started calling the mainstream general market, and general market became white, right? So then became these silos in the industry and even in our own communities. Well, that's general market. Well, that's Latino. Well, that's black. You know, the reality is that today's mainstream looks like us. You know, black, Latino, Asian American, LGBTQ. We are the biggest and most energetic component of today's new American mainstream. You know, and I think we have a responsibility to take our place on the stage and claim it, instead of allowing others to just say, okay, well, you know, let's just do it with casting. Let's see how that looks. But truly, that is a marketplace reality. We are the ones bringing the energy, the culture, the change, and by the way, the money. The buying power of our collective is enormous, and we must exercise that. So the truth is that there is a mainstream. It's just ours to claim. General market is dead. That is a dead old term that we should really try to eliminate completely.
Amen.
Now, when you asked me a very good question, how do you balance? Like Derek said something that was very true, which is we should be claiming more general market, quote, work, not total market. We should have the big contracts. We should have the big work. But I think that it falls on our shoulders. Folks like Carol, Bill, myself, and so many other really talented shops out there to be responsible as to how we go about doing that big work, those big contracts, because it is our duty to do it right, not to create the sins of others over and over and over. It is our job to do it right. Now, what do I mean by that? One, I think that we have to defend segment-specific work. That has been the biggest victim in the entire ecosystem. When, you know, it's interesting to me that about 10 years ago, when I walk into a client, I go, we're a Latino shop, and it is our responsibility to deliver you the Latino customer, that kind of became a bad thing, where doing endemic work, doing work in Spanish was seen as old school. Get your numbers right. That's still a normal part of the mix. Bill, you know that, you know? So to me, when you go endemic, we should go big, lead with big insights, dare to be different, dare to be us, okay? And then when we're doing the work that speaks to the broader audience, I think it is our responsibility to do it thoughtfully, to make sure that the insights that drive our specific communities and our specific customers to action aren't, you know, that they are not diluted and that they're not oversimplified. So it's a dance and it's a fight, right? But I will tell you that I think, and I go back to my earlier point, when you think that the decimation that's happened to our industries, whether it's Latino agencies or African-American agencies, came at the hands of total market, because we became very big. You know, you couldn't cover the sun with a thumb, because our audiences became so big and so big, took a big part of the new American mainstream, that what happened is that the script was taken by the general market holding companies and said, no, we're owning this one. We're going to do it with casting. You're not members of the right golf club, so you can have the conversations I can have. And basically, it really hurt not only our agencies and our maker community, but it hurt the media. Minority-owned media has gone through a tremendous crisis. And I think that this is our moment. This is our collective moment to right this, to put it back on track, to claim our place, and to not be embarrassed about it. Yes, we're inconvenient. Yes, we're complex, but yes, we are the future.
Yes, Carol, I know you have some insights on this topic.
Yeah, I have to say the TMA is an incredible, and it was an effective strategy. It effectively pushed multicultural agencies in many levels out of business. And you have to recognize that. Despite the denials, it manifests itself as a one-size-fits-all reduction plan. It delivers generic translations and or adaptations of a general market, as it used to be called, which, as Alex says, no longer exists. The entire market is a multicultural market now. Without diverse consumer insights from the beginning of its process. But it was a strategy that was given birth by mass market agencies to do just what it did, quite honestly. It reflects a perceived need to be inclusive without having or investing in the expertise to be targeted, resonant, or personalized. Therefore, in practice, TMA becomes the adaptation model, a shift away from the authentic, a shift away from what is motivating. The result is an approach that tries to be for everyone, producing watered down creative that becomes too generic, too generalized, and sometimes even for the general market. It doesn't work. Got numbers to prove it. Meeting the lowest common denominator leads to lower performance and missed opportunities. So what we need to do as multicultural agencies is we need to understand what is missing. Is a strategy evaluating circumstances, ideas, and narratives that actually shape how people see themselves and make choices. African Americans rarely make buying decisions around what the average customer in their category may do, but they often buy things because they find themselves with a unique problem or challenge that they would like to solve. And as a result, we as marketers have to think about that. We have to understand why that strategy was given birth. It was disguised under the idea of efficiency, but no, it was designed to be effective and to take back that money, and it accomplished that goal.
And I'll just say this before moving on to the next question. For me, being on the corporate side, I had to try to explain and rationalize why we couldn't just do general market strategy and why we had to keep our ethnic segmentation and why we always had to have ethnic representation on all the research we did so that we could lead with those insights. So, I think it takes the corporate leaders working with the industry leaders to really help companies understand the importance of working with diverse agencies and having those diverse insights. So I want to thank Alex and Carol for sharing.
Yeah. I have one last thought. We have to be very aware and we have to have our antennas up because times are starting to change. I'm feeling that we're being included in the strategy side. We want to know the insights, quote unquote. We have to be, I know that Carol didn't open her agency to be a consultancy. Bill, Anita didn't either. I didn't either. So I think that we could be, and that's why I keep talking about the makers, us being part of the maker community. We should be very careful that we're not invited to give our strategies, to give all our insights, only to have somebody else execute the work in a vision that's theirs, not ours, using makers that are not them, not us. So I think, while things are improving, I think we have to expect more, and I think we have to really have our antennas up, because it's a really tricky thing that could happen if we're not careful.
I agree. Thanks for that insight. Okay, so this next question is for Carol. So first and foremost, congratulations on receiving Ad Age's Vanguard Award during this year's Women of Watch Awards event. Kudos to you. Your agency is the longest running independent multicultural marketing shop in the country. Give us your perspective on how the industry has evolved since you first started your career and the greatest opportunities and challenges multicultural firms face today.
Well, thank you, Dorinda. Thank you for that accolade. I sometimes feel that's the way of calling me old, and been around here a long time. So, and doing this thing. But okay, let me take a minute and I'll walk you back through that journey. And it was quite a journey, a hell of a journey, let me say. I had a great time. I love and have great passion for this business. And I started in the business at Leo Burnett Advertising in Chicago. And in those days, brands were king. Brands were everything. Brands were about selling propositions. And it was about, you pick your peas at the perfect time of perfection. It was all about what was in that can or what was in that box or whatever you were about to buy. So when you could come up with that unique selling proposition, that was what it was all about. And as we move forward, it was also about, well, highly concentrated media. Because again, most of the media was a few television stations. I mean, I'm sure most of you a lot of these viewers don't realize that in Bill and Derek's and Bill and Alex and my day, I mean, I think, guys, we started off with about 3 or 4 or 5 television stations, three. Derek says 3. It was ABC, NBC, and CBS, and then just a few major magazines, like Life and stuff like that, and radio was all about drive time. It wasn't much more than that, and boy, the competition to appear, to have a voice was huge. And it was all about the creative that you put in those vehicles. That's what that day was about. And then media fractionalized. It became, the stations became, there were a multiplicity of stations that suddenly appeared. Radio everywhere became localized, and it always was, and then it became national and localized, and talk shows began, and a whole nother look suddenly happened. As it evolved, so did the way in which we had to go to market evolve. And when digital world exploded, it created a whole new language. And those of us that resisted learning that language and engaging, well, you got trapped in yesterday. You had to move forward. The focus evolved, framing appropriately became an issue. Questioning what the audience was deeply valued became an issue. Once there was a belief that representation, even through it, which it does now, representation was an invitation. The representation no longer became an invitation. You had to move and do more. We're living through extraordinary times now. From our work, we see reoccurring things today. I mean, they are reoccurring on an ongoing basis. It matters more, and with a different inflection to multicultural African Americans, we have to do it. We do what we do with a distinct set of experiences as a culture and as individuals, and manifest in important ways, stemming from living in a systemically radicalized society that continuously deny the existence of overt racism. Because a lot of people, they love to call it systemic and other things. It is overt in many, many ways, especially when you see it through our eyes, our lens. And we had to work inside those environments like that, that every construct was built in that way. There are hard truths we have to face, each as multicultural to be able to make it. Because there are some things we can impact, and there are other things that we cannot impact. You cannot spend too much time in the face of overt racism. If you see it and you come in contact with it, that's born inside the entity that carries it. The most important thing is to move as far away from it as you can get and work inside an environment that, even though it has some of those elements, that you can succeed in. But I've seen many, many people inside this environment start to get in boxing matches with it. And that's a tough one. Can't fight it. You always are going to run into the barriers internally, but you have to learn how to go under them, around them, over them, and at the last moment, if you can't make it through any of those ways, you put on your boxing gloves and you go through it. It's expensive to be Black in America. Expensive, guys. We pay a big price every day for that. Our success as individuals and families is less secure than our counterparts. That's just a hard truth. Our radar sonar is more finely tuned, hypersensitive to social and cultural signals and goals across the universal dimensions like status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, and fairness. The stakes of our choices are usually much higher, so we must really be very discriminating with the choices we make. Our time is precious. Culture and ethnicity is a shaping force in our lives. I see that persistent yet utterly outdated approaches in this business every day. The marketing and value efficiency over effectiveness they're on the rise in our industry, and we must recognize this. We must have the courage to confront these values face on and understand how to strategically deal with them. And these models that create disconnection and their presence form are doomed. They will not work. So don't be burning your time, money, and energy really for suboptimal results. Always go for the big one. Always try to make the smart choice. Always try to think through, what is this barrier in front of me? What is this problem? And then you have to understand, in this business, you are a problem solver, and doggone nearly everything you run into is a problem. And so if you learn how to problem solve and you have passion, you can be successful in this business.
Thank you for that. Does anyone want to weigh in? I know I'm hearing a lag.
Well, how do you follow up after that? I mean, that was a sermon. That was a truth. That was, that was the period, an exclamation. And yet, here we are with our boxing gloves on. Here we are trying to find out what strategies we need to move forward, around, and through. And so I ask, and I know I'm not the one asking the questions, but I truly want to just kind of piggyback, or I hate that piggyback. I just want to like put the exclamation on what I've just heard, because we do come up with so much pedagogy and vocabulary, but at the end of this, we are living in and we are working within a systemically racist system. Period, no doubt. And it's going to be together that we continue to have to try and figure out what that strategy looks like. But more importantly, it's the pressure. So Derek says that, the organizations don't have any effect. What we've actually been effectively been able to do is provide platforms for people like Dorinda. We've been able to provide some of those opportunities to network where there didn't exist, right? You couldn't do that. So, but the problem is once you get inside, that systemic racism and all of those things are still there. But that has been the charge of what some of these associations, I don't know about all of them, but our association was to make sure that we provided opportunities so that excellence could have some type of a platform. So now we're ready to see what's the next reiteration of that. Now we've got the excellence. Now we've got the Andrea Campbells and the Kai Lawsons and the I can go on and on and on because we've had so many women go through our program, and it's a women-focused program. But there are all these men who are also amazing. So my thing is now let's keep that pressure going. Let's keep that pressure going. The conversations are great. Let's truly have great strategy, and I'm ready to learn.
Thank you for chiming in, Africa. So we're getting some feedback. I'm not sure. I'm just going to ask everybody to mute their mic. Hopefully, okay. I don't know if it's coming from me.
I did want to jump in on what Erica was saying, and also what Carol said. Carol, you and I know somebody that says this all the time, Kim Hunter from the LeGrand Foundation. He always says the fish rots at the head. And he says that over and over and over again to me. So I'm on the Advertising Educational Foundation Board, which is a division of the Association of National Advertisers. And we made a commitment to diversify our board by 50%. So 50% of the board members will be people of color. And we're on our way to do that. It's not 10%, it's not 20%, it's 50%. But we also decided from an equity point of view that we can't just focus on the top 10 HBCUs. We've got to dig deeper and look at the ones that are below 25, the top 25. And so we're making an effort to do that. And so the board has already made that commitment that 50% of their board will be made of people of color. And it won't just include the boomers and the OGs. It's going to include millennials. And one of the things that, Erica, you said really well, is that millennials and Gen Zers are holding us to task. But we as boomers sometimes don't allow them to have a seat at the table. Now, if we're going to allow them to be problem solvers, they need to be at the table helping us be better problem solvers. So as Carol was saying, we are problem solvers, but we can't solve this by ourselves. We've got to pull in that generation to help us get this done.
And Bill, I think we also have a responsibility to help teach them where the bumps in the road are, because these millennials, this new generation, I mean, they've got all this energy, they see it, but they haven't been necessarily through what you, Carol, and I, and, Gene Morris and all these folks that came before us, right? I mean, it's our responsibility to say, okay, I know what you heard. Let me tell you what they're really saying. I think that's really, really critical. We should not abdicate our role of Sherpas for them.
I'm loving this conversation because I agree that generational diversity is so important because they could learn from the veterans and with their expertise, and then the veterans can also learn from them in terms of driving innovation. So I think it's really, really important. So I'm going to move on to the next question, which is for Bill. Your organization prides itself on launching new brands, growing competitive brands, and reimagining legacy brands. So take us through a campaign your agency led that demonstrates how your agency has had an impact in consumer markets.
Well, I could talk about a lot of big brands, McDonald's and Lexus and Edison, but I really want to focus, well, I will focus on a big brand, but I want everyone to understand that you can make an impact regardless of what your budget is. And our budgets tend to be small because we're one of the smaller segments, the Asian American market. But one thing I also wanted to mention before I move into this is that the TMA, this total market discussion, has been very interesting for us. And one of the things that we've been pushing the brands to do is invite us to jump balls. Because I guarantee if you invite us to a jump ball, we're going to put up a really good fight and come up with a really great plan. So if I were to put Carol or Erica or Derek or Alex in a jump ball, chances are we're going to win that jump ball. We're going to have an opportunity to lead on some of these big major advertising accounts. So we've already won 3 of these jump balls against the mass market agencies. And I, for one, love jump balls because as an agency of color, we are a lot more nimble than these big mass market agencies. They move like dinosaurs. And so one of the things that we did was we looked at Walmart and we looked at the landscape of America today. People are feeling uncertain, worried. Unemployment is high. Artists are losing their jobs. People are having a difficult time feeding themselves. The frontline workers put themselves in danger each and every day. And so the idea was, what brings comfort to us? And we remembered Kellogg's cereals. We all grew up eating Kellogg's cereals, Fruit Loops, Raisin Bran, Rice Krispie treats. And we decided that we're going to do something about these unemployed artists and the soup kitchens that really need the help because they have so many people that are standing in line trying to get a meal for their families and their kids. And we found out that a lot of these charitable organizations cannot get enough food to deliver to these soup kitchens because restaurants are closed or at 25% capacity. So we decided to go to Walmart. We bought over 100 boxes of Kellogg's cereal, something that we remembered very fondly. We took out the contents of those boxes, labeled them, and then donated them to Rescuing Leftover Cuisine, an organization started by Asian Americans to help people in need, especially now. And cereal is something that they really need because there are a lot of families with children. We took the empty Kellogg's boxes and we gave it to an artist named Kat Chu Phillips in San Diego. She loves trash. And she converts trash into art. And we went to Walmart and said, what are you doing with that blank wall? And they said, that wall is blank. We occasionally put signs and posters and POS there. And said, we want that wall. And Walmart said yes. So we sent over those Kellogg boxes after we delivered the food to Rescuing Leftover Cuisine. Kat Chu Phillips repurposed them all and created a piece of art in time for the Mid-Autumn Moon Festival, which just started on October 1st. And then we got social influencers involved, Walmart associates involved, Kellogg's got involved to spread the message about we can do something positive if we all find ways to work together. So it's not a major advertising campaign, but it was appropriate for today. So I think as multicultural, intercultural agencies like ours, we're a lot more nimble. We're working in the communities where a lot of these people live and work. And to find those kind of opportunities is what we do best. And so that campaign just started. It's doing really well on LinkedIn and Facebook, and on social influencers are posting it. And it caught the attention of not only Walmart, but it caught the attention of Kellogg's. It caught the attention of other companies that are looking for feel-good opportunities. So that's the campaign that I wanted to talk about.
I love that because where we are today, I think a lot of the work that we do in the advertising communications industry has to be purpose-driven. It has to be able to highlight how the power that we have to drive change. We had someone who, was saying we spend a lot of the time focusing on the challenges, but what are some of the solutions? And I think you just gave an example of how we could use the power of marketing and advertising to really drive positive change. So thank you for sharing that. I want to get to a question from Allison. She's a small business owner And she wants to know, what is her strategy to raise enough money to hire advertisers such as yourselves? That is a differentiation of her success. She has a responsibility to pay you your value, but cannot afford it. So she's in a rock and a hard place with no mountain and a harder place. So anyone want to weigh in on her question?
That's a very, very tough place to be in. And I totally sympathize and understand her problem. I think places like MOBE and stuff is a place where you can get good information. And there are those of us, quite honestly, because we learned at a very early age, a lot of people want to, African Americans and other multicultural communities have brilliant ideas and great stuff to introduce new products, but can't get a bank loan, can't get on, what's the show where they fund a new product and what have you?
Shark Tank.
Shark Tank, can't get on Shark Tank, that kind of thing. But there are those of us, those advertisers, and you got to make sure they're legitimate, real, know what they're doing to take, because, just like at any other thing, there are those of us that think we can play basketball and we can't get the ball down the court. So you have to really be very, very smart about how you identify it. But if you can meet partners that can look at your product and have vision and see if there is an opportunity for success, and there's an opportunity for success, then you can form partnerships that allow that partner to take you to market, but you still have some dollars that you need to put into the game. You always got to put some sweat into the game, and you need to figure that out collectively or singly. But to find a partner that's willing to go down the road with you, and for something like maybe stock, look at it that way, that they may be able to take you to market and help you get there, because that's what a lot of the big boys do. It's not always the money that costs you to get there. It's also whether or not you have a real opportunity for success. And I've seen some young innovators that have some real opportunities for success. And so it becomes a responsibility of those companies that know how to do it and is not chasing the dollar every 5 minutes, perhaps, to partner with you. So I think you have a lot of decisions to make and a lot of homework to do. And you can get a lot of consultation from the CBOs and the people like MOBE to point you in the right directions.
I would also say, part of the networking of MOBE and organizations like MOBE is you're going to meet some very young, very ambitious people. And I think right now, more than ever, with the onslaught of social media, if you're smart and clever, there's a way that you can provide yourself an amazing presence and branding on social media. Meeting a young copywriter who's hungry, meeting a young art director who's hungry, who's looking, perhaps, maybe you can't offer them money, but maybe you can, if you have a great product, maybe you offer them some stake in your game. So I think everybody on this call is a hungry, gritty, has grit and hunger that has driven them, because this is not an easy, of course, there's been no pathway, right? There's been no step guide. So I think, innovative thinking, problem solving, and creative problem solving is the name of this game for sure. And definitely the name of the game for entrepreneurs who are in it for the long haul, because it's just, I think you're not going to always have it served up on that silver platter. And sometimes you can be given a lot of money and not have the creative back. So think about ways that you can find and reach out. There's even a lot of seasoned talent out here that would love to bite on a project that's going to take them in some different way that maybe they haven't had before. So I would offer that.
Thank you, Erica.
I agree.
I don't
By
mean
the
to
way, can I
pile.
just say that? Oh, sorry, Dirk. You go ahead. You haven't had a chance to say anything lately, so.
No, go ahead. All I was going to say is I forgot the young lady's name, but she doesn't need to look for an agency all the time. Is what we're saying is look for teams, look for individual freelancers or contract workers in your market. And to Erica's point, establish ways to compensate them that isn't, and Carol's, that isn't always cash up front. You know, those are suggestions. I'm going to stop. I wanted to come back to Kevin's question afterwards, so I'm going to let Bill go.
I did want to say that a lot of the agencies will take on a smaller project if there's an opportunity to build that business into something substantial. And so a lot of the contracts that we have start off, you know, very small and have turned into multi-million-dollar contracts. And so as Derek said, and Eric has said, we might consider trading product. So one of the liquor companies provided all of our holiday gifts for us, for all of our media friends and all of our clients. And that was worth a substantial amount of money. And ultimately that turned into a much larger account. So we may take it on, or it might be a freelancer that's willing to take it on. Like Erica said, there's like these tiny 2 or 3 person shops that would love an opportunity to build a name for themselves.
Thank you. Derek, I'm going to ask your question, and then I'm going to ask the panel to weigh in on Kevin's question because I think it's important. So for you, Derek, you refer to yourself as an instigator. So tell us about that and why you refer to yourself as an instigator, and the role that digital marketing has played in your career, and what trends and insights you're seeing that may support more equitable opportunity in the industry.
Wow. Okay. All right. We got to take those in parts. The funny part is Bill he mentioned the jump ball. The reason I say instigator is because I believe we haven't approached diversity and inclusion as an advertising problem. When we approach it as an advertising problem, we realize there's a thinking that one group of people are more talented or more experienced than another group of people. And we've done nothing to address that thinking. All of our diversity and inclusion efforts have been to fix Black, brown, gay, and lesbian, and whatever. We're fixing the victims. We're not requiring the people with the messed up thinking to change. Then Bill's idea of jump ball means we throw an assignment up and you try on your own. Everybody rises to see who gets the jump ball. It's all equal. It's a level playing field. I take on the thing of instigator because I'm transitioning from the small agency to a competition designed to do just that, allow us to compete against one another on a level playing field. And I named it the Creative Kumite. And I'm always starting crap on social media, so I figured, you know, why not start a fight in advertising? Now, what was the third part of that question?
So
I'm sorry.
Digital marketing trends. What are you seeing right now?
I think, and I don't mean to beat up on nobody, but here's where I think digital marketing is almost a level playing field, because especially, and I'm thinking about it differently than most people would, for the agencies of color, it's a level playing field. You can talk to everybody without anybody filtering it or going through levels, but I'm not seeing the CEOs and the leaders speaking on Twitter and LinkedIn and telling their story and establishing themselves and showing what they know. I know they know these things. I mean, the comments from these three folks, I'm already thinking, how can I pull them and post them on LinkedIn and Twitter tomorrow? They're quotes I've already got from you guys, but I don't see you every day. I don't see you once a week. Bill and I used to blog at Ad Age, and I enjoyed his blog, but we don't, and we get so caught up in running. What I see digital as is digital's that level playing field where it doesn't matter who you are, it matters what you can do and how you can attract and hold a person's attention. Because let's be honest, that's really what advertising is at the core. You got to stop them first. And then you got to be able to persuade them and put that message out. But if you can't stop somebody, so the trends in digital now, I hadn't seen any brand play with the versus idea, the concerts. And how sad is that? I mean, there's something in there, and I don't see us pushing it that far. The collaborations between some of these young artists, like the game, Travis, was it Travis on what game was that?
Travis Scott.
And, yeah,
Scott and yeah.
Fortnite. No, not Fortnite.
Fortnite.
Yeah, Fortnite.
Yeah.
That kind of collaboration we're starting to see, but we're not seeing enough of us playing with digital. I think when we start to play with digital, we'll discover there's a lot. Now, the odd thing is I'm on digital and I'm trying to own digital as an old traditional guy. You know, I look at YouTube and people go, oh, those are digital videos. No, those are TV spots. You know, they're formatted as TV spots, long formatted TV spots, but they're still the same. Skills transfer over. You give me, Bill knows this, and give me a long copy writer, and I'll show you a great blog writer. Give me a radio writer, and I'll show you a great blog writer, or a Twitter, or Instagram, or a LinkedIn person, because they write without pictures. You know, show me an art director that knows their stuff about attracting people visually, and that person owns TikTok and they own Instagram. And I don't think we've made that jump where the traditional skills are still needed because they can exist online and they do a job oh so well. A couple of days ago, a young man was asking me, how do you blog? How do you tweet so many things? I said, I'm just writing those 50 headlines I used to have to write every day. You know, they're just headlines to me. And that's a skill set. But what it shows is that the digital allows you to transfer. You don't have to learn a new skill. What you have to do is learn how to talk to people on digital without the pretense. You got to be human. And we talk about humanity, and we talk about empathy, and we talk about authentic and all of these words, but it's true. Don't clean up. You know, we're seeing this, and this is so glorious. People aren't cleaning up their blogs. They're not cleaning up their LinkedIn presence. They're not cleaning up their Instagram or their TikTok. They're being human. And that's the core of it's people talking to people. And the brands, oh goodness. I was stalked 3 weeks ago by Moldy Whopper. I made a comment about I didn't think Moldy Whopper deserved to win awards. And on Twitter, Moldy Whopper started a war with me. And it had a tone and a voice, and it was so funny. And I'm like, and you know, I grew up in the hood. I'm sorry. So I hit back. You know, I'm like, look, I remember when you used to be, it took 2 hands to hold a Whopper. Now any kid can pick up a Whopper with a single finger. You know, it's a baby toy now. And we exchanged like that for like 2 days. Where else in the world would you see a brand interact with somebody like this? You know, Wendy's does it. Popeyes tried to do it, but Popeyes is, you know, not Oreos. God, I forgot the cookie now. The candies, there are a couple of candy companies that do it well. But when they do it, Steakums does it really well. You know, I haven't thought about eating the Steakums in 20, 30 years because, you know, I'm trying to keep my heart from exploding. But it does it. And that's what digital is. But what's happened is we sort of segregated it. It's the young people thing, you know. And I think it's starting to change now that we've all been stuck at home. I'm seeing older people on there, and I'm seeing messages on Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook, especially Facebook and Twitter, towards an older market. Because let's not forget, older people got more money than young folks ever will have.
Well, Derek, the funniest thing you did this summer to me was the love of peaches versus the other fruit. I'm surprised that the peach industry didn't pick up on that.
Exactly.
Because that was the best. I chuckled so hard. That was the best.
I started a feud between mango fans and peaches fans. You know, I'm a Southerner. So I was like, hey, look, there's no greater fruit than peaches. And then, of course, the people from the islands came after me because they believe the mango, a sorry excuse of a fruit, is equal to the queen that is the peach. And how dare they question the peach? The
so we
peaches...
always be following Derek on Twitter if you're not already.
So, but think about how much fun I'm having. And to Erica's point, why didn't the peach growers jump into this? Why didn't the mango growers jump into this? So that's the trend is I think people have to put their ears on. You know, brands need to be listening. Things come up like this and brands miss an opportunity. Popeyes, in their defense, I don't like a lot of what they're doing now, but when that sandwich first came out, they were paying attention. So when that came up, they popped in.
Was it Popeyes or the agency though? Because it was like, I forgot what they said, but it was Black slang that they pretty much put out there, and Black Twitter went crazy.
Yeah, but it was the agency.
It was one young Black girl who understood the nuance of the culture. She said something. She was like, "Y'all." She said something that was so vernacular. Y'all good?
Yeah.
And everybody that understood, meaning all the people who were in on that Popeyes, they fell out. That was awesome because that connected. That let us know that somebody who looked and understood our culture had said something, right?
Yeah.
Something had been said, and we knew it wasn't a corporate tagline.
Exactly. But there's the fun. I mean, I don't know if you've seen the video. There's this lady cursing her daughter out. And it's one of the things. Her daughter decided to fix the auntie's macaroni and cheese recipe and bring it to the family event. And every Black person will tell you, that's a way to get cut by one of these older women. You know, you don't experiment on the macaroni and cheese at Thanksgiving dinner. And I'm watching it and I'm going, where are the spice companies? You know, where are the spice brands? Where are the cheeses? Where are the noodle companies jumping in on this?
I don't think it's where they are. It's they haven't hired and they don't value the creativity of people who don't look like them. They don't trust it. They don't trust it.
So guys, with that, I just want to be cognizant of everybody's time.
I'm sorry.
going to back up with this last question from Kevin, because we spent a lot of time discussing problems, and I'm going to ask each of you to give us one example of what's working to push clients to change. Alex, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, you know what? Yes, I mean, we did spend a lot of time on a lot of the problems and issues that we face because we do, and that's just kind of the imperative right now. But there is a lot of good stuff happening. Let me start with one of the things. I know, Bill, you've been very involved with the ANA for a number of years, and with the ANA right now, with their AIM, their Alliance for Inclusive and Multicultural Marketing, that group is doing some amazing things, starting with their See All initiative. And the way they've approached it is really, really very holistic, dealing with data, dealing with the results, dealing with measurement, certainly dealing with a groundswell that we saw at the Emmys, doing a lot of outreach. I'm really proud of what's happening because I really do believe that because the ANA is where all the clients and marketers live and they do respect it, it's kind of like bringing change from the inside and doing it in dealing with the topics that matter to them, that they can take back to their corporate headquarters and go, but wait, there is something happening with measurement. But wait, there is something happening with this, So I'm really excited about that. I'm seeing some change. I'm like, Bill, give me a jump ball any day. And, sometimes there's things that come to us as agencies that may not seem like a jump ball, but they are an opportunity for us to shine and to show how the ideas that we bring forth have a lot more legs, have a lot more opportunity. So I think that I'm seeing some change where a lot of clients are saying, okay, that was your assignment, but you blew it out. That's really interesting, And so I think, as difficult as these times are, I'm seeing some opportunities. I'm seeing a bit of a change in minds. The things like the ANA's See All, hashtag See All campaign, I think is really powerful and bringing around a lot of change. The CMC, the Cultural Marketing Council, I think is commissioning research and flexing its muscles as the organization that it should be. So I'm excited. I think that this we do have our challenges. We have to have our antennas up. We have to be very, very aware. But this is our moment. This is our collective moment to show the entire industry what we're made of, and that us as participants of the new American mainstream, we're ready to really write the new American story.
Thank you, Alex. Bill, I'm going to ask you to weigh in. What do you see that's working to push clients to change?
Well, first of all, I wanted to acknowledge Carol, Derek, and Alex for what they were saying, because Carol said we're problem solvers. Alex said we have to have our antenna up. And Derek said we have to be following what's happening on social media and digital. And one of the things that I think that is really important is that I don't know about any of the other agency folks, but clients don't know what they want anymore. And so now I think one of the things that is an opportunity for all of us is to kind of lean in. We're hearing a lot of things on social media. As Derek said, we need to pay attention to that. We have our antenna up, but now we have to jump in and say, okay, we've got a solution for you. You're going through all these changes at these companies. Here's an idea. And one of the things I know that a lot of the agency people get mad at me at saying is sometimes we need to take a risk and give that idea to the company and say, we have a solution that probably nobody else has thought about. Bring us in, and we're going to help you solve this problem. And so that has worked remarkably well for us. We do not wait for companies to issue an RFP. We don't wait for a review. If we see something, it doesn't matter which agency has it, we will say we've got a solution. And I will tell you, the companies are looking for that. They're looking for people like us to step in and say, what is your solution? And what can you do for us? And can you help us write that brief? And so we're being very, very proactive at that. And by the way, that's helped us land 5 new accounts. And they're not clients. We just saw it on social media. We heard about it. Or another agency told us what was going on. And we just waited and said, we've got an idea. We've got a solution. So there is an opportunity for all of us if we're willing to jump in and say, we're going to help you solve this problem.
Carol, you want to weigh in?
Bill and Alex and Derek are all correct on their POV of solutions. But that is us trying to solve the problem continuously from within. The problem cannot be solved without you, the consumer. You have to be smarter, sorry to say it that way, and more aware about where your money is going, and feeding companies that do not feed your community. And we, multiculturals, are really, 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 you'd be shocked about legislation, who's supporting that legislation that don't support your community, how it's being done, and you're buying those products every single day. Your money is working against you. And it's hard to make that turn within if you're not willing to sacrifice. We who you are looking at have made a lot of sacrifices to be where we are. So maybe you don't buy that brand of whatever, but that requires you to understand who owns it and how that money is being used. Like, for instance, one of the number one pizza companies in your refrigerator is a number one supporter of issues, legislations, and people that is working against the community. You need to know that. You need to know whose pillow you're sleeping on. You need to understand where that money is going. We work hard. Our mothers and fathers have sacrificed and suffered to put us where we are. And then we go out and haphazardly purchase these things without being cognizant of who those companies are and what they're doing with their dollars. We will continue to fight our fight for myth internally, but we also need our consumers to fight those fights externally. And so we can all make this change together. And now is the time to do it.
Thank you, Carol. So Erica and Derek, I'm going to ask you to chime in real quick because I have to bring Yvette back on. What is working to push clients to change? What are you seeing? Erica, I'm going to start with you.
I feel like there's a democratization of consumerism right now, meaning consumers are no longer being led by the commercial and the tagline that makes them feel good. They are looking, as Carol said, at companies that have purpose, companies that are doing things that are helping to push the agenda. Black Lives Matter is not a moment, it is a movement that's here to stay. It's being driven by so many people, and that's a wonderful thing. And so the inertia right now is building up to disrupt. And that's what I see, that's what I hope for, that's what I will continue to be a part of, because that's where it needs to, no one is accepting. As Carol said, we're not accepting buying toilet brands and toilet tissue from people who are then creating policies and legislature that won't allow my daughter, who you probably saw in the background, to not have a fulfilled life. Who's going for that anymore? So I like to continue when you say, Bill, that clients don't know what they want anymore. Oh, they know, but they're scared because they need to recognize that they need to make the right move, which means they need to bring in a more diverse group of people that are relevant, that understand what's going on, and be on the right side of humanity.
Thank you, Erica. Derek, final word.
Yeah, there we go. I'm going to keep it real quick. We are all an industry of fear. On the client side, on the agency side, we're all afraid of something. But the agencies, to answer Kevin's question straight on, the agencies have to put on their big boy and big girl panties and help the clients address and face their fear. You know, the idea of bringing ideas to the clients that they don't ask for. Reminding them that they have a social responsibility. God, Carol, I love that. I miss Tom Joyner. You know, Tom kept brands on their toes. We have that until we deal with that fear, until we get to where we can encourage our brands to be braver. And I love that Bill and them are doing it with unsolicited, because that's what you have to do sometimes. You just have to go to the undiscovered country and try these things. Yeah, you're going to lose money, but sometimes you don't. But we have to be willing to fail. And so, dear God, this society will not tolerate failure as well as we did in the past. We took big chances. We tried audacious things. And that's what we need to get back to. Walk things into the client, not to the guy or the girl that's coming to your agency. Walk it to the CEO. How dare you talk to the CEO? I'm going to end with this. My very first boss in advertising was Paul Council at Kramer Craftsville in Milwaukee. Great boss, powerful CEO. And one day this VP of marketing said something snide to him about how we worked for him. And Paul looked at him and goes, "I'm done talking to you." He says, "I am the CEO of an ad agency. I will deal with your CEO." And he walked out, went down and called the CEO. And while we sat in that room, the phone rang in the conference room, and the CEO of the client side had called in and made the CMO apologize to our CEO. And that day, Paul turned to us afterwards. He goes, I don't like using my title, but I understand the power my title has. We are owners of a business. We do not answer to, sometimes we need to grow a set and stop answering to peons and go straight to our counterparts, the owners or the CEOs of those companies. And if we can't, then we got another problem. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Derek. So I just want to thank all of you for being part of the movement. All of you have done great work for years in driving equity and inclusion in the advertising communication space. So we applaud you for your work. We celebrate you. And I am now going to bring in another word from MOBE on next week's exciting show. And we'll hear closing statements from Yvette, founder of MOBE Symposium. So Yvette's coming back on.
Thank you, Dorinda. In recognition of Indigenous Peoples Day on October 12th, MOBE Mondays will focus on solidarity between Black and Indigenous people. We'll be discussing the lack of knowledge among the communities about the other, the presence and representation of Black natives, and how our communities can work together to support one another in community organizing, corporate spaces, specifically film and media, and healing generational wounds. Ultimately, we seek to create a space where we can engage in inspirational, though sometimes difficult conversations in pursuit of building bridges between Black and Indigenous people. Latarian McIntosh will lead the discussion with Turquoise Sky Devereaux, Amber Starks, and Rick A. Dillard. We look forward to having you tune in next week to our MOBE Mondays. And now a word from Yvette.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. The conversation has been absolutely wonderful. It is about our power. It really is about recognizing our power. And you're right, Carol H. Williams, the woman of the year, the woman of several decades in our advertising industry, to become the first Black female vice president of an ad agency, to lead for years, for 30 plus years, and with your own agency, and see the clock being turned back once our wonderful work became the work of the industry, the success of the industry. I appreciate your being here. I have to bow down to you, my sister, for being on this forum and for the things that you said to empower us as we move into the future. Dorinda, you've been a wonderful moderator. To our panelists, to Bill, to Derek, to Alex, and to Erica, I just want to say thank you so much. I'm going to have Yvonne give you an idea of what's coming up next week for next week's MOBE Forum. And I just want to say that this has been, there are notes at our Facebook page. The conversation there has been robust. And I believe that we can move the needle. We can change the narrative. No, we're not the minority. We are the American consuming public that requires respect and dollars. Without the budget, you have no commitment. You have no commitment to your consumers, and you have no commitment to your future in reality. So, Dorinda, Yvonne, are you going to come on and tell us about next Monday?
I think she did that already.
Okay, well, thank you very much for being here. And good night, everyone. Thanks to our guests, our audience. We really appreciate your being here. MOBE Mondays is a series that takes place every Monday. And we hope to see you back here next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to everyone on the panel. This will now end our broadcast of MOBE Mondays.
Thank you.